What do you do if even that suggested bid is not giving any impressions? That's not abnormal, unfortunately. It's not abnormal to not get impressions. And so what I would say is that raise your bids, test raising bids. A couple reasons why this could happen as well is you might have that particular search being triggered through another one and somewhere else in your ad structure for that product. So that could be another reason why. So if, for example, if that keyword is performing in, say, a phrase match and you go and you launch an exact match, it might take a while for that impressions to start shifting over to the exact match, which is fine and expected. Okay, so you can test that. I would honestly just test like increasing the bids here. Oftentimes, even if you're using a suggested bid, that doesn't necessarily mean that's a high enough or aggressive bid. The suggested bids are a good start, but you always need to optimize from there. There are other ways to do it, right? So anything that is going to increase your conversion rates will increase your ranking. Anything that increases the amount of orders that you're getting through that specific search will increase your ranking. That's why a lot of times sellers will do these things in tandem, like, say, testing coupons, potentially testing lower price point if you have the margins enough to be able to do that. If there's any sort of listing optimization that you've been putting off for a while. I also just today filmed, so expect it out within the next week or so, filmed a video on how to analyze your conversion rates versus your competition. There's some stuff going over the search query performance reports, how to use those to analyze. So if you're brand registered, I would keep a lookout on the YouTube channel. That's going to be helpful as far as like analyzing how is your conversion rate versus your competition. Best combination of map types for branded, generic, and competitor keyword targets. Yeah, I'm still a huge fan of using all the above. So we use exact match, phrase match, and broad match for pretty much all targets across the board. And now it does somewhat vary depending on the account budget and then what stage we're in, because you noticed when I was talking about product launches, I recommended launching specifically an exact match and sticking to that for a while. So I do think that that is applicable. What I would say is that the more aggressive you want to target something, the more specific your match type should be. And that's not because there's anything wrong with phrase match or anything wrong with broad match. Everything has their place. The difference between those is when I am aggressive in exact match, I can be 100% confident that my spend is being allocated to that specific search term. If that decrease in ad impressions means less people are seeing your product through the ads, and then the sort of cumulative, the way that the ads influence organic ranking is if the ads sales are happening through that one specific search. That's why I talk about if you're going aggressive, go an exact match so you can influence the sales velocity through that one specific search. If both the organic and the advertising combined make a greater sales velocity on that one shopper search, then you will climb up in rankings. And that is exactly and precisely the reason why a lot of people will push their advertising, they'll see their organic ranking climb, and then they'll say, oh, this is unprofitable, and they'll cut their ads, and then their ranking decreases. And they're like, what gives? It's because those ad sales through that shopper search were adding to the cumulative or total sales that you were getting through that one shopper search. And without those additional ad sales, you do not have enough sales velocity to be able to push past your competitors. Business reports will tell you the sales that happen the day that that transaction is enacted. So if I go into, if I go to Amazon as a shopper right now, I want to purchase a product, bang, done, add to cart, ship it to me. That transaction is going to show up in that seller's business report as the day that I bought the product. However, if they go into their accounting section of their reports and they look at when they actually, when that accounting records the sale, they're probably not actually going to see that transaction till maybe a day later. And the reason why is because you don't actually get paid as a seller until that product ships. Hello, and welcome back to another Ask Junglr segment. Excuse me. This is the time of the week where we show up for an entire hour and answer your Amazon advertising questions, be it down in the weeds. Oftentimes we're screen sharing, we're diving into strategies, we're sharing resources. And so I'm super, super excited for this, which by the way, I'm already seeing questions come in the chat. The format of this is anywhere you are watching, there should be a chat option. So we're going live on all platforms. You can type into the chat your Amazon advertising question. We will pull it up. And when I say we, I have a special guest today that I'm super excited about. But first off, intro to myself. If you are new, I'm seeing a lot of returning faces. So amazing. But my name is Elizabeth Greene. I'm one of the co-founders of an Amazon ad agency called Junglr. And we specialize in business-centric ad strategy, and we offer no obligation audits as well. I think there's a question about audits in the chat box. So that's why I feel qualified to sit here and talk about Amazon ads for an hour. But I also have an amazing special guest. So please welcome Carly McMillen. Carly is the co-founder of an Amazon company, PPC Farm. So welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I'm really excited to be here. Yeah, so a little bit about me and PPC Farm. So we are an Amazon ads agency, and we specialize in helping 6 and 7 figure sellers grow. And we are unique in that we offer a 60-day free trial. So if you have ever wanted to try an agency for your Amazon business, or if you've maybe recently wanted to switch agencies, anything like that, our free trial is a great way to get started, try us out. And we do that because we want to put our money where our mouth is and show you that we're confident what we can do and that we can deliver. So yeah, check us out at ppcfarm.com if you want to learn more about the agency.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm really appreciative. We'll talk about, where they can get a hold of you in the beginning. And also, I don't remember if we have your episode live as well. Carly put out some really cool information. I've been telling everyone I'm pretty much stealing the homework of my network because one, it makes it easier for me for content, but then two, there's so many like amazing strategies out there that are very like nuanced and specific. So basically what I've been doing, which by the way, I should pull up our YouTube channel, get that up there. But what I'm doing is I'm actually bringing on amazing guests like Carly. And what we're doing, if we go and look at our videos, a lot of our new videos up here are with Carly's episodes up here. She's talking about like ad placement strategy and like focusing on very specific placements. I talked to other good friends, talked about ranking. And so I have a ton of friends. Actually, I have even some friends from like Better Media who are going to be there. That one's getting edited. We're doing a lot. So it's basically I'm tapping into my network and saying like, oh, I thought this was on the screen. So on our YouTube channel, I'm basically tapping into my network with good friends like Carly to say, hey, you guys are doing some awesome stuff in strategy. Can I share it with the world? And so everyone has been super, super generous. There's a lot of really great, and these are tactical strategies. Like when Carly came on, it was like in the weeds. This is a specific type of campaigns. Here's how it works. Here's how it doesn't work. Here's what to watch out for, which I really appreciated. And we were on that episode and I was like, I should totally have you on the live because you're getting so in the weeds when it comes to Amazon advertising.
Yeah, you guys should really go check those episodes out because I think there's a lot of good value in there. It was super fun to record too.
Yeah, no, it was great. People can chime in saying hi. Gilbert saying hi. Hello, Elizabeth. Hello. Asif's asking if I'm doing well. I am. I'm feeling good today. Honestly, I'm on a new kick of eating cleaner. I promised myself I'd do it for a week. I'm hoping that the week will turn out so well that I'll have the guts to continue it for a month. But so far, I feel amazing, which has been really, really good. All right, Isif saying thank you for sharing your experience. And I know we had a hi, Carly, in there. Awesome. So I'm already seeing lots of questions rolling in the chat, which I'm really excited to get into. So I'll pull them up. We'll get them started. But just another quick reminder, if you have an Amazon advertising question, or Carly said she also has some other insights outside of advertising. So maybe if there's any of those, feel free to drop them in the chat box wherever they are, and we'll pull them up and we'll get into them. But the first question is, is, hey, Elizabeth, oh, this is an interesting question. This is more like an agency question. Who provides the account audit when registering for your website? Anyone for your team will get a chance to connect with you and understand how we can reroute this account. I guess it's directed at us. Maybe you can answer yours because I know you do audits as well. For us, yes, you do get in touch with me. And as far as the audits go, I still go through those. Now I have my team pull all the reports and put everything together because like it's not worth my time to like pull the reports. I basically built out an audit master sheet that they can just like plug everything into, and it gets me the insights I need right away. But that of course is tedious. You got to download a ton of like I forget how many reports we download for that, but it's like 6 or 7, maybe more. Plus, we built a custom scraper so we can look back at the entire history of like your ad account and look at everything like back to back.
Awesome.
So it's pretty intense, but that like lifting of pulling data is no longer on my plate, which frees me up to again. So I can still talk with you guys and not run around like a mad woman pulling reports. What about you guys? How do you guys approach audits?
Yeah, so it's pretty similar. We go and we also have like, we get connected to the API and then go in and pull reports. And just like you said, we kind of have a template or a master list of all the possible or potential problems that could be going wrong in PPC, whether that's something related to campaign structure or like your, wasted ad spend, things like that, right? And that kind of all gets plugged in and it spits out essentially a dashboard that we then put into a presentation, right, to share with the client. And for us, whoever you initially talk to. So first you'll have a discovery call and then we'll do the audit just so that we can kind of like get familiar with the business, right? I think that's pretty standard. So whoever you talk to on that discovery call, whether it's me or one of our other account managers, that is your person, right? We don't have salespeople. We just have people who know PPC because I think it's the kind of, I understand the why it happens, but it can feel not good, right, to sometimes get bounced around to different folks. So whoever you talk to on that first call, that is now your account manager. If you end up signing with us, that the person who did your audit and was on that first call is your point of communication going forward. So that's kind of how we handle that. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, I think most people have like some sort of, again, I know you're deep in the weeds as much as we are as far as the audits go. Like each audit will be tailored to the specific account and the insights and whatever's found in the account. But like you do this enough, you know what to look for. Totally. So you're like, all right, I need to look at this. I need to look at that. Oh, here's a problem. Here's a problem. Here's a problem. And like, I don't know. There's a lot of times I'm on coaching calls or stuff. And it's kind of like, oh my gosh, how do you see that? It's just like, I've done enough reps at this point. Like, and then I'm like, oh wait, that's a problem. They're like, oh, is the problem? Yeah, because this account and this account and this account had the same thing. And then it's like, it's pattern recognition, to be honest, more than anything.
Totally. And that's why you can come up with this sort of like a template of problems because it is not the same, but so similar, right, from account to account. And a lot of folks tend to kind of fall into the same traps in PPC.
Yeah. I would have been. All right, cool. Let's see. I'm making sure I'm not skipping over anybody's question. Ashley's in here with another great question. Can you discuss what's the most effective ad strategy to show a discount? Ooh, I like this one, especially with the what is it? The big spring sale, I think is the correct terminology that kind of came out of nowhere. So discounts, prime only versus all customers, coupon deals, adding sale price to a listing. Thanks. Okay, so it sounded like this is on discount strategy. Let me reread again. Discuss what the most effective strategy is to show a discount. Okay, so it doesn't sound like it's quite ads focused, more discount focus. Price discounts, prime only versus all customers, coupon deals, etc. I know you said you had experience in other categories. For us, we have just gone off of, kind of what our clients run and then like maybe have some learnings from them. But I don't know about you. Have you seen any specific discounts work better than others?
Yeah, so like you, we don't have a super robust way of tracking discounts specifically. It'll be sort of part of a larger strategy, like, okay, for Prime Day, we're doing this, right? And sales and deals and things like that. And, honestly, what we often advise our clients is like, be really careful about running too many deals and sales because it can, you have to be really cognizant of how it's going to be impacting your profitability because while it will often increase revenue, especially during the big sales days and events of the year. We often find that people are like, wow, we just made 10x our revenue, great. It's like, okay, but yeah, you actually ended up with less profit than you did
Yeah.
before, right? And so being really careful of that. But it sounds like maybe what Ash is asking here is also related to like how to show it, how to display it, and the strike through and things like that, right? Some people have
Yeah.
issues getting strike, like maybe that's part of the question too. And I would say like you're gonna need to experiment. Like there's different the lightning deals and other Prime Day deals and things like that. You do have to register for in advance, so making sure that that is part of your kind of like yearly planning if you do want to get
Mhm.
into those deals, and you do need to have like hit certain thresholds and things like that to even to be eligible for some of those deals and showing up on certain deal pages and things like that. And it costs money. You can't just
Yeah.
like you have to be eligible, you have to apply, and you also have to pay. So really thinking about whether or not that is going to be beneficial and profitable for you, for your product, is important. Not just like, let's run a deal to run a deal, right? Why are you running that deal, and making sure that it's really part of your overall strategy, and profitability should be a big factor in that.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. The other thing that I would say is like you can take a look at what some of the top products in your space are doing. Now, they might be doing better volumes, they might have an advantage that you don't. And so, like Carly was saying, like definitely keep an eye on the bottom line and how is that going to affect you. But so for example, we just onboarded a client just this morning, and there he was saying like, hey, there's these top competitors in this in this specific space. It's a little bit, he's kind of towards the top, but he's vying with some big numbers. And he's like, oh, I've like everyone in this space runs deal days, like everybody runs deal days. And so obviously when that happens, you're affected. And so he's like, all right, I'm getting ready to run. We're running a lightning deal tomorrow, so we're prepping ads for that, right? But sometimes you can also like look at what other people have done to be successful and sort of test to see if you can like surf off of that success. What I will say for any days that are like Prime Day, so spring, or now there's a big spring sale, which I think it's a little bit too late to add those discounts on there. I'd be interested to see if like the coupons still display something after the cutoff date for like the deals, but we'll see what happens because that cutoff date has already come and gone. But for Prime Day, you can get a badge that says like Prime exclusive discounts, or when it is what is it, fall Prime Day? Like they use all these words. Like fall Prime Day. That one, you can get a specific badge if you have, I want to say the requirement is like a 20% off coupon, and you have to like check a box somewhere that says. During those peak events, if you have a deal that specifically calls out that event, we have seen that be like the most successful versus say just like running some other normal now deals definitely work that time, but like if you say discounted your price on one of those days where someone's like looking for a deal, they might see a lower price but not necessarily associate lower price with, oh, they're running a deal, because it's sort of like a deal day. The other thing when it comes to, and I would say it also kind of depends on your strategy as well, because one thing that we've seen for like products, if you're trying to like liquidate a product, and there's a lot of times it's like, hey, let's push advertising and see if we can get the advertising to sell the product. A lot of times we've seen that like products typically struggle in advertising because they don't convert well, which just means that ad performance is just not going to be that great. And a lot of times like putting a really low price and maybe a small coupon tends to be the best way to like, quote, liquidate a product. Now, again, in that instance, we're not talking profits. And it's just, you've got to like get rid of stock for whatever reason. So I would say think of the time of year, check what your competitors are doing. And then also, again, is it because, oh, I need to increase conversion rates? Because if you can make sales at full price and rank, like make money. But if you need it to increase conversion rates, then I would just say what Carly was saying, like just test.
Yeah. But running a deal just to run a deal, like I think is, there's no point. You should like you said, make your money. If you can sell at full price,
Mhm.
definitely do it. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you have a good point there too, because getting those specific badges, I mean, that's eyeballs on your listing, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes even
Yep.
more so than people seeing the strike through, right? Those little badges, like we can't put a banner really above our listing in the search results, right?
Right.
That's just one little way that you can kind of get those eyeballs. So I think that that makes sense.
Absolutely. Gilbert has a great question. What types of mandatory auto campaigns are you using for all of your client accounts?
I mean, low bid auto campaigns all
Yeah.
day. That is mandatory for everybody. Every single ASIN, every single client has those running. I think it's just a no-brainer, right? And now, what is considered low bid is going to vary for each niche, right? We actually run two low bid auto campaigns for every
Mhm.
ASIN. One that we call our micro auto and one that we call our catch-all auto. We'll
Mm.
start the micro at 5 cents and the catch-all at 20 cents. So we kind of just want to have these almost like tiers of catch-all campaigns, of these low bid auto campaigns, and then we'll adjust, typically up from there, depending on like if it's a supplements category or something like that. I mean, you're not going to get anything at five
Yeah.
cents and 20 cents, but yeah, I mean, those are mandatory auto campaigns that we have to have. I would say.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, I would say as far as like across the board catch-all autos, which if you don't know what that is, it basically prints money. So you should totally launch one of those. Which looks like you're watching on YouTube. I'm gonna pull it up. Do you have a video on it?
A video
Uh,
on
okay.
catch-alls.
Oops. I clicked the wrong button. Let me do that again. All right. Let's do this. All right. So yeah, this is a video that we have. I call it the campaign that prints money and also how not to screw it up. Because as Carly was saying, like it's a low bid strategy. You don't want to increase bids. This is not something that you scale from a bids perspective. So you want to be very cautious of that. But if we don't have one of these campaigns up in our account, it's pretty much like the first thing that we'll put up because it's a really great, like your goal here is low cost profitable traffic all day long. It's phenomenal for that. So would highly recommend getting one of those up. And then again, a typical low bid auto. I wouldn't use auto campaigns for like scaling or ranking because there's just like a high amounts of inefficiency if you do that. But they have been phenomenal for like you said, low cost traffic.
Yeah, and the way I always describe it to people is you're kind of catching anything that falls through the cracks for
Yeah.
really, really cheap, right? Maybe your competitors are running out of budget, during certain times of the day, and you're able to just swoop in there and grab something for 20 cents, right? So
Yep.
that's why they print money, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like there's a question more for me on a recent presentation I did. But ESF is wondering, so during the recent Jungle Scout Seller Week sessions, which was fantastic, so much good information shared. If you haven't already checked it out, totally should do that. We mentioned starting an exact match campaign for each keyword is a good approach if we have 10 keywords. Yes, you can go more than 10. You can go less than 10, by the way. This is actually a strategy that did not come from me, to be honest. It was one of my account managers who's done some really amazing launches recently. And I was asking her, similar to what we did on our YouTube video, like that's actually how I got the idea. Like when my team does something awesome, I go in there, I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? How are you doing it? What's your decision-making practice? And when I was asking like, oh, how are you picking keywords? She had mentioned like, hey, I found somewhere between 10 and 15 keywords to be a really good sweet spot because it's a very aggressive strategy. And what she was saying is that even if you have a hefty budget, there's just like potential, I wouldn't call it waste, but like high test spend if you go more than 10. Which is why I say 10. But if you end up with less than that, if you have the budget to do more than that, by all means. And so if it was wanting, this means running 10 exact match campaigns initially. Yes, because you're doing single keyword exact match campaigns. Should you share your thoughts on the best time to transition from exact match to phrase match or broad campaigns for better efficiency? That is a good question. However, I wouldn't categorize it as a transition. So let me see. This is the presentation I had. Let me pull it up. So basically, this is what you're doing in the beginning is the initial campaign setup and the initial optimizations. Your goal within that first phase is simply to figure out which keywords work best for a ranking perspective. And then you move into the scaling ads phase, which is where you would want to start launching your little bit broad phrase, all of that. And then when you move into that phase is determined when you find those key rank keywords that you have strong conversion rates on. That's when you start like accelerating that in this strategy. This is a very aggressive, like, got to hit the ground running strategy. I have talked to other clients that are like, they want a little bit more profit focus. I'm like, all right, then we're running our old school launch strategy that we ran in the beginning of like 2024 and like through 2023. That's not a bad strategy, which is like your typical find a bunch of keywords, launch exact phrase broad, kind of throw some autos in there, see what works and sort of scale it from there. That's not necessarily a bad strategy, but we found is that you can't find like those key rank keywords as quickly. It gets kind of muddied in that strategy. And so this is like a hit it hard out of the gate kind of strategy. So I'm not going to tell you, like, you're not transitioning. I'm trying to see if I can find a good screenshot and what you're looking for. So you're looking for on those initial exact match keywords, you're looking to get impressions, clicks, and then orders. And then you're seeing where does that funnel break down on which exact match. But once you figure out which keywords work, and the funnel, quote funnel is working, i.e. they're driving orders, then you've kind of like moved to like, okay, at least I found some stuff that work, and you're building off of that. So you can launch those same keywords in exact or in phrase and broad match and add in your auto campaigns and kind of build. Basically what you're doing, instead of like running like maybe phrase and broad like test campaigns and then saying, oh, these ones work, now let me go aggressive in exact match. And sometimes those things work. You're almost doing that in reverse. So you're like picking all of these keywords, going aggressive to test, and then saying, okay, these are my rank keywords. Now let me build that rest of the funnel. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily that because the phrasing you use is the time to transition. It's not that you're transitioning, it's that you're adding, if that makes sense. And the time in which you would do that is as soon as you have at least a handful of keywords that do convert for the product. So that could be as soon as, you might find it in half a week. It might take you a couple weeks. Ideally, the sooner the better. And then when that happens, your scaling campaign, you're basically just building out your scaling campaigns, which again, there's your low bid autos. So low bid autos are fantastic. And then you're like, all right, great. I know where I convert from a ranking perspective. Now let me build in low bid autos, broad match campaigns, product targeting campaigns, etc.
So it's kind of like a fast track kind of strategy. And it seems like the initial keyword research, I saw you had some slides in there about that, would be so important for that, so that you're not just kind of like, right? Because if you're just kind of like, oh, I think this will convert, and you throw it in an exact, then you might get burned, right? So yeah.
Yes. No, I know we'll probably belabor that point, but there's a good slide in here going over like lower relevancy, and people get trapped in this all the time.
Yeah.
Like I see this. So like, here's a great example of lower relevancy. Like see this, like baby blanket or swaddles for newborn are technically low relevancy, but I've seen so many accounts that were like, oh, I'm a baby blanket, I'm a newborn. And like the competition here is so intense versus muslin swaddle blankets, which still has a great search volume on it, but like, okay, that's my product. So that's a great call out. Like you gotta know how to do the keyword research to make sure that you're not, the strategy is not for the faint of heart, and maybe is a little bit rough if you're a beginner. It's totally doable, but it is more intense. I'll say that.
Yeah. I could see that.
Oh, interesting question. So here we're getting into like, is there a cannibalization territory?
Okay.
What do you do with keywords which are organically ranked? Do you keep them spending or close the exact broad and phrase match campaigns?
Okay. This is Yeah, this is always a tricky one, right? Like once you've let's say you did your launch, right, and now you're ranking really well organically. When do you kind of pull that back, right? That's a really
Mhm.
common question. And it's I mean, is the answer to a lot of things. It's going to be like a test and see kind of a
Yeah.
situation, right? If you start pulling back and you realize, okay, this isn't like I'm starting to lose rank, then you might need to, revert, right? But when it sounds like you're saying, when do I pause these things, right? So how I would approach this is actually in your bid adjustment, your bid management.
Mm.
Start lowering your bids before you're just like going in and, hacking off limbs essentially and pausing things. Like
Mhm.
that is when you're gonna get into that territory where you're seeing a drastic drop. And so you want to be careful about doing that. And you want to do it incrementally and strategically. And I think that would start with bid adjustment.
Yeah. No, I love that you called out bid adjustments. I'm 100% with you on that because so the thing that you're kind of getting at is when you like do you keep them, it's almost like there's this we have to keep spending or completely cut them off and pause.
Mm,
And what Carly's saying is like there's a middle ground where you can test your bid because the thing that always kind of I don't want to say like freaks me out, but does in a way because I've talk about pattern recognition. I've seen the aftermath of completely pausing something and then
mm,
realizing that you just completely decelerated sales and then having to like almost overcompensate and almost in some ways have to go back into a ranking phase to make up for it. So it's
yeah.
basically what we're trying to like caution you against, I guess. Um, so basically what Carly said there's an easy way to do this and there's a hard way to do this. So the hard way to do it is to say, okay, these are the keywords in which I'm ranking on really high, and I have really high ad rank in search. And so therefore what I will do is I'll go and incrementally decrease the bid and then I'll see like, okay, do I show up? I show lower down in search and then track my rankings. And then you also want to keep an eye on your total sales of your product as well, just to see if there's impact there. And then do that again. And like, so it's a very incremental lowering. The way that I found that's the easiest way to do this at scale is simply set a lower ACoS target than your current target.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally lower your bids.
Yep.
I would go very, very minor here though. So like say we had a 30% ACoS target, we're running at 30% ACoS. I would go like 27, like super, super, which will naturally like very incrementally decrease your bids. And then you can do that more at scale because you probably have some sort of bid algorithm or something that you're going
Yeah.
after. And then that will make it easier to kind of like go up to it. But the problem is, so the thing that Carly's saying, like, we don't know it's a test is how important is it to have those additional ad sales to maintain the velocity you need to rank? That's the unknown. And so the thing is, as you pull back, you will decrease the sales velocity of that search. And the question is, do your competitors outstrip you so much that you need to maintain those ad sales to not slip down in search? So that's basically what you're hypothesizing and testing is if I spend less on this, I won't decrease my rank and therefore I won't decrease my sales. And then if the answer is yes, then you want to push it back to where you were before.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice too about just lowering the target ACoS instead of trying to, because the other unknown, as you described, is okay, but on which term, right? Which term is really contributing to, to my overall sales, and like how does that work? And trying to figure
Mhm.
out like, oh, how much should I decrease it yesterday on this one term or whatever? I mean, that's really time consuming. That's really tedious, right?
Mm.
The other thing that I will say on this is to mess around with placements and
Mhm.
multipliers on placements, because while you might be organically ranked and you're right up there at top of search, maybe you still want to have your same ad strategy for rest of search or product pages, right, and sponsored products. So that's another thing that you can pull back on just top of search, right, and just have a campaign running specifically for rest of search or things like that as well,
Mhm.
right, so that you can kind of just more strategically work on maintaining that rank without without pausing things, right? I guess, that's kind of what we're trying to say is like, be careful about just going in and pausing things because you might end up with this kind of rubber band
Yeah.
effect, where you're decelerating yourself too much and now you have to play catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have any insights on like buy box percentages?
Oh,
I'm
like
asking,
in relation.
there's yeah,
Okay,
there's
okay.
a question on somebody winning buy box. But to be honest, Ashley, as much as this is a fantastic question, the answer is I don't know because I don't deal with buy box stuff. I didn't know if you had any insights.
Probably not more than the average person then, that talks about Amazon stuff. Just the fact that if you are having buy box issues, I mean, if you are able to identify who that hijacker is, it's going to be a cease and desist kind of situation. And of course, there's
Mhm.
companies that can help you with that at scale if you're having a lot of hijackers across a lot of listings. And yeah, so you do your test order and then you send the cease and desist, right? And then beyond that, you're essentially entering a price war with that
Mhm.
hijacker. But yeah, those are kind of my surface
Yeah,
level knowledge of buy box issues.
I would say definitely. Yeah, we have more PPC questions. We have a question on like agency stuff and getting clients. Maybe I think we'll have time, but I'll come
Sure.
back to that one. All right. So this is a fantastic question on very aggressive categories. Someone is crazy enough to launch in a highly competitive niche, supplements, apparel, etc. Would it be advisable to first gain some sales from social media or drive straight into PPC?
It's kind of a chicken or an egg situation
Yeah.
a little bit, right? And I think that it's good to have that awareness about I am entering a competitive niche, and I understand that it is going to be challenging, and I understand that I'm going to need to do some off Amazon marketing to actually
Mhm.
make this work, right? Just entering into a competitive niche like, let's say, supplements with just only Amazon as your main platform and thinking that that's going to work. I mean, you will
Mhm.
need a huge budget, I think, to be successful with ads for that. So I think it's smart that you've recognized, hey, we're going to need some off Amazon brand building and brand awareness in order to make ourselves successful on Amazon. So I think that's really smart that you recognize that. Now, which one should come first, I don't know that it matters too much, and I think you should probably do them both anyway. Like, regardless, you should almost certainly do both of them. But I will always recommend to not go too aggressive on PPC until you've hit a certain threshold for ratings and reviews, because it's almost like inviting people into your store if it's still under construction, right? Like, you're going to be kind of throwing away the ad spend to an extent. So being a little bit mindful of that, and then of course making sure your listings are fully optimized and all of that. Basically, yeah, making sure your store is completely finished and construction is all done and you're ready to actually bring customers into your store before spending on ads is what I always recommend, whether that's off Amazon or on Amazon.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic call out for launch because I know there's a lot of times where, the client's like, all right, we'll fix the listings, right? We'll get them up, we'll get them fixed, and then as long as that expectation is that conversion rate's not going to be great, again, especially if you don't have any reviews and it's kind of getting fixed up. I mean, there has been some like very happy surprises where like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, the conversion rate is way better than we thought, even though we're still getting the listing fixed. And then it's like, great. And we're just going to get an extra bonus when the listing is fixed. That does not happen in competitive categories. I'll just say
Right.
that. The less
Right.
competitive the category, the more that you'll probably go on the listings of all of your competitors and be like, how are you making sales with this?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
still those corners of Amazon, but they are typically not very high volumes, which is why
Yeah.
the competitive categories are there because like the shopper volume is there. I'll add a nuance to this as far as like, do you need it? Like, which one would you do first? I will say, typically speaking, Amazon advertising is more purchase intent than a lot of the other like offsite platforms. Not that they're not valuable, not that they can't still drive sales, but there's a little bit less. If you're scrolling on social media and you have a pattern interrupt, that's fine, but you weren't really like intending to purchase something. Again, if your audience is super curated, then maybe you're finding people But and then the other thing I would say is, like, do you know anything about the platforms, or do you have anyone who knows about those platforms? And also take into account your budget. I've had brands come to us with like very limited budgets, and they'll say like, oh, well, we want to run Amazon ads, but we don't think these are going to be very profitable, or should we split the budget? I would say, regardless if you plan on spending the budget on Amazon, off Amazon, however you plan on splitting it, make sure that it's going to be enough budget to make an impact. So an example is very classic is for terms of like Amazon terms is like DSP. If you don't have enough budget to like really test an audience, you're not going to be making the most potential out of DSP. It's not even going to make sense for you to even try it, because the DSP is completely different than sponsored ads. But like you have to like thoroughly test, and it learns based off of like audiences. And there's a lot of external ads platforms that do things that way. And so in those cases, like if you're not giving it enough to do the learning that it needs to, you're not going to make the most of it. And then again, like for me, if I was doing product launch, I'm gonna be like, oh, Amazon advertising all the way. Why? Because I'm really freaking good at Amazon advertising and I know what I'm doing, right? It's not that any offsite traffic is bad. It's just like I know this really well. So if you're like, oh wow, I'm a wizard at Facebook ads, I'm a wizard at Meta ads, I'm a wizard at Google ads, I feel like I can really leverage these things. Leverage your skills and talent. But if you don't have that, then recognize you're going to be learning, and I would prefer to put my money where I'm the most confident to spend it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Good question here. Is there a tool to automate bid increases and decreases by time, not by performance criteria? Can this be done under Helium 10 Diamond? I don't know if it's done in Helium 10. Carly, do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, so I'm not sure about Helium 10. That we don't use that software for bid adjustments. But in terms of increasing or decreasing by time, I guess you'd probably have to shop around and see what features are available with different software. I mean, essentially, you're doing day parting, right? But you're doing day parting specifically on the time. And I would also just caution against this a little bit, because it sounds like you might just think you're observing that there's certain things are happening at certain times of the day, right? But the reason that we want to utilize day parting at all is because we actually have the data on what's the best time of day and day of the week, right? So unless I'm reading this wrong, but yeah, because the reason I say that you might think you're observing something is because we often get clients that say, look, I see my sales decreasing in the evening. Can we not do something? It's like, well, we actually already have day parting running. So if that is actually happening over a significant, time, like with significant data or to significance, then we're doing something about it, right? And also keep in mind that if you're just like checking in your account, checking every single hour, Amazon data can be delayed, right? What you're looking at in Campaign Manager can be delayed. And also keep in mind, like that is Pacific time zone. If you're in a different time zone, yada, yada, right? So whatever you're doing, whatever tool you choose, it should be utilizing the actual data, not just like what you're observing, because it can be hard to kind of keep all of that data in your head and see and make changes based on what you think you're observing.
Yep, I would say 100% agreed with that. And then the other thing that I would say is exactly what Carly was saying. So there is also like an attribution window, or any data that you get will have like it will record the time of day when the sale actually happened. So it's like, okay, they ordered. But there are, and I know this because I probably have like 5 things sitting in my Amazon shopping cart right now that like I just didn't click buy on, or I added a bunch of like, or I'm always going through like as I'm going to purchase something, and like there's something from my husband in there, and I was like, oh wait, did you want to purchase this? He's like, oh yeah, like, can you order that for me? Or oh wait, no, you can not order that, right? So even if he like say clicked on an ad and then added it to the cart, but then I went through later, a couple days later, we ordered way too much from Amazon, but and then initiated the purchase. That purchase technically was driven through the advertising, but that order is not going to be recorded at the hour. So we still have like marketing stream data, and there still is like AMC data and some really interesting data points that you can definitely get into. I'm with Carly on like, just be careful, make sure you're making data-driven decisions. As far as tools, two that I know for sure do this. One of them is PackView. Now, PackView is a little bit more of a PackView is the one. PackView allows you, now that one has more like scalability to it. Any tool that allows you to do this kind of day parting should also have analysis baked in. That one's not particularly cheap, so there is that aspect to it. If you wanted a more economical option, there's something called PPC Profit, spelled Prophet. It actually has a beta that allows you to do this. Now, one thing about the beta is that you do have to go and individually set rules for each campaign. So it's a little bit less scalable cost-wise, super economical. Honestly, that's a fantastic tool at a really great cost if you're looking for like bid optimizations. But again, just keep in mind, do you want to pay more for something that maybe has a little bit more enterprise options, or do you need a more cost-effective strategy? Question on why are the organic rankings so inconsistent these days? Some days are on top, other days there's a dip. To be honest, it's pretty normal.
Yeah.
It's pretty normal.
Don't check it every day. That's what I always say. Like if you're in there checking every single day, you're going to give yourself a heart attack, right? It's much better to just wait. There's some parts of PPC that are a mindset, or like you have to manage your emotions in a way, right? Just like with trading stocks, that there's that aspect of it too. So I would say don't watch it every day for your own mental health. And it's also, you're not going to be able to spot trends if you're watching it every single day, right?
Yeah.
So giving yourself at least that 7-day window to see ups and downs and be able to spot trends and patterns.
Yeah, one of the things we've observed, which is really kind of difficult, is especially if it's a very competitive category and you're starting to really push on certain terms and get more ad sales to be able to rank. Like you'll see ranks, like we use Helium 10, but there's also like Data Rover where it's like, it looks like it's like bing, 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 bing. It's like up and down.
Yeah.
But if you can look at it, say over the course of a couple days and then eventually weeks, you will start to see, okay, so every time it bings up, it's slightly higher, so we're getting somewhere. But you'll see like insane fluctuations. And we've seen that particularly when you're pushing on something to rank in competitive categories. That can be really, if you want to drive yourself bananas. And speaking of things that are completely outside of our control, you can go look at geo ranking, because fun fact, where you rank in search actually completely changes based on zip code. So there are tools that, like, I tested one, I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago, they were out there, where it's like, oh, look, this is your geo rank in like every single region of, oh, look, you're ranking top 2 over here and top 3. The problem with that is, like, similar to what we're saying here, is like there's literally no control you have over that. Like you can't geographically target with sponsored ads.
Yep.
And so it's one of those things, I think it'll just drive you crazy. And there's like Carly's point of like, look at it over time. Is probably the best. Now, again, if over time, you could say like, okay, let's 2 or 3 days, and then maybe 7. You can look at that. Do you use bid placements for phrase match campaigns? If you do, where do you use it? Top of search, rest of search, product pages? We do on occasion, but I'd love to get your thoughts here.
Yeah, for us, so we actually don't really use phrase match because we feel that it's already captured by the broad match type, so we don't use phrase match very often anyway. But for broad, sparingly will we use placement modifiers, just because the reason we're using broad in the first place is for keyword discovery. So we're just less precise, basically, with the broads usually. So we almost exclusively use it for exact match type campaigns, and that's both for keyword targeting exact as well as product targeting.
Yeah. I would say so. I have a soft spot in my heart for phrase match. We definitely
You
use
do?
it.
Okay.
So what we've seen is that there's sometimes a like exact match for whatever reason you just can't get a key term to work, and for whatever reason,
Mm,
sometimes when you put it in a phrase match, like it does really well. And phrase match has less potential to like completely spin out of control the way broad match
sure.
does.
True.
So for that reason, I kind of like it.
That's fair.
And then for us, in terms of like determining when it's going to make sense, like exactly, it's like, where does that specific campaign term perform best? I wouldn't think of it as like, oh, blanket statement XYZ placement performs better. I would say always look at the performance metrics and then just like adjust based off that. And yeah, I'm a huge fan of doing it incrementally. Like there's some where they're like, oh yeah, top of search 200%. I would prefer like, it's like 5, 10, 20, 15, just some incremental approaches to it and then adjust up from there. Cause again, I feel like that has less potential to like spin out of control and you kind of can track progress.
Totally.
Out of stock products. I just want you to want to know if our top product is out of stock and other lower selling variations has inventory, how do we strategically should expand them? This is a hard one, to be honest. I've seen some pretty big impacts of top variations going out of stock, but I don't know if you have any observations.
Yeah, I mean, going out of stock is like one of the worst situations you can have on Amazon. I mean, outside of full suppression and stuff like that, right? But if your top product is out of stock and if you've never tried running ads on your other variants, then go for number 2, right? See if you can make something happen with number 2, and you might be surprised. Like if there are color variations, you could actually get really good traction with the pink one, right? Or whatever, just because it's eye catching in those search results. So yeah, if you've never run ads on your other variants, give it a shot, right? It's definitely worth experimenting with, and especially if you're out of stock, it'll at least continue to drive some traffic to your page, and you might be surprised.
Yeah, yeah. I will say, so we had a variation for one client where there was like a really just key variation. It was more like the gender neutral, and then he had like a pink and a blue variation, and it was a baby product or like baby gift product. And we still had like, we were going after like girl keywords and boy keywords with each of those variations. And it was very surprising, like just the really heavy impact that a best-selling variation had on the ranking, because it was like immediately as soon as that product went out of stock, like ranking, and the thought process from the client was like, I have other products and the other products, it's not like they don't convert well, but there was like a significant impact. So I would say, depending on how big the delta is between your current bestseller and like your next bestseller, I'll be honest with you, there's a kind of a good reason why like first, second, and third rule of Amazon is like don't run out of stock, is because you might see a very significant impact. So I just want to like brace you for that. And just like if you do see it, know that that's unfortunately a little bit normal. And then yeah, I would exactly echo what Carly said of, try advertising the second best product. See if there's a way to sort of push orders using that one.
Well, and to your point, just that even though it's the same product in a different color, right? It's actually a totally different market, right? Like you said, with boys colors and girl colors is a good example of that. So you actually can think about it like your top product is out of stock, not just your top variant, right? So
Yeah.
keeping that in mind, that you yet to prepare yourself that you might not actually get the same traction for the other variations because the market could be really different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, looks like people are getting value from the session. Mohammed's saying informative, so that's awesome. Aman is asking, yes, we are live on YouTube, and honestly, that's the easiest way to catch replays, by the way. I don't know, like LinkedIn's kind of weird with the replays. So if you go to our YouTube channel and you go to live, you can see how many of these things I've done. It's a lot. There's a lot of them. So you can always catch past live replays on YouTube. You can catch them on all channels, but I find YouTube is kind of like the easiest way to like go in and quickly find past replays. All right, we have a question on AMC. Do you guys have any experience running sponsored product campaigns using AMC audiences? If so, are you running custom queries for these audiences or using pre-built through the platform? We are tentatively testing both. In our experience, it is a fantastic test that I'm really intrigued, and I'm deeply interested in the long-term outcome of AMC on, and I think it's so interesting that they're connecting this to sponsored product ads versus traditionally a lot of like audience targeting has been sponsored display ads. So I think like that's really, really cool. What I will say is think of the AMC audiences and sort of the impact you can have on sponsored product ads, the same impact as like your typical placements. Like, is it an enhancement on something? Yes. Can it be greatly effective? Yes. Is it a lot of test and see and sometimes works and sometimes doesn't and sometimes has minimal impact? Yes. And so what we've seen is that regardless of the product, we haven't really found like a bullet. And again, we're in the very early testing phases of this, but we haven't really found like a bulletproof audience yet. If and when we do, I'll let you know. But so far, it's been a lot of testing. And from our experiences, not all audiences will work. Even if you think like, oh, this makes total sense for the product, you might have like 1 in 10 that are effective.
Yep. My experience is the same. We're still early days testing this. I mean, it was only recently really available, right? So we've been experimenting with both custom and the pre-built, right? I mean, it's pre-built, it's in there. It's much easier to launch those campaigns, right? Just straight from the template. So yeah, we've been experimenting with both, but like you said, Elizabeth, like we don't have this works every time. You know, we don't know that yet, but I'm sure it's there. Like I'm sure that there's going to be some kind of algorithm that you can kind of plug and play for every client. But yeah, so far don't have it yet, but I'm super excited about the possibilities.
No, and AMC has some interesting insights other than just the ability to leverage. Like the data in there is pretty, well, of course it's intense. And also, dang, I should have learned like SQ, like I should have learned how to write SQL. I have an idea of how to write SQL. I'm not like fantastic at it. That's why we have a developer on staff.
I mean, and honestly, these days you could plug it, ChatGPT or AI can get you really far with that, and you can kind of bypass some of that
true.
Education aspect. Yeah.
What an amazing world we have.
Yeah.
So much easier these days. Oh, this is a rough one. Okay. How do you survive in a small niche in keywords with very low search volume?
Have a lot of products. You know, if you have a portfolio of, so if you've identified, like you said, those kind of corners of Amazon where there is still a lot of potential and the competition is very low, if you're able to identify multiple of those, then you got yourself a business going, right? But if you just have, if you have a tiny niche, you know, super low search volume, like that kind of is what it is, unless you can sort of sell the category, unless you're in this kind of new, if it's because it's new, right? You need to build awareness around that entire category. People maybe don't know your product exists, right? Or they don't know that they have that problem, right? And you need to kind of explain to people that yes, you do have this problem, and you know, my product solves it, right? You're going to need to do additional awareness and education potentially around your category, if that's the reason that the niche is small.
Yeah, I 100% echo that. Unfortunately, with Amazon ads, you cannot outspend consumer demand. Like you can't spend more to create that demand. Not on sponsored ads anyway. And so you basically, honestly, that is like kind of the most difficult. I'll like everything's difficult, right? Beauty's hecka difficult. Supplements difficult. This clothing due to your SKU size and some of those hecka difficult. I will say I think the most difficult has to be the categories where there's only one keyword with any decent search volume, and that search volume is only in the couple thousands, and there's a lot of competition. From my experience, those are the ones I look at and go, I kind of cringe a little bit because I know how hard it's going to be. So I would say it's it depends on the competition. I think in this case, it's a matter of setting expectations of what that product is capable of. Because if you are not, again, you're not trying to like outpace the market, and like Carly was saying, like we have you expand your catalog, like there is a potential where you have like small winner, small winner, small winner, small winner, and those can stack up. And I've seen that where, it's actually in some ways, if you can hit it right, can make you bulletproof. Like we've had clients where it's like, wow, you have this large catalog and yet every single product is kind of pulling its weight a little bit. Which just means like, all right, where do we even focus? And then like very classically, a lot of products or a lot of accounts where you'll have like one or two like just major hero products and then everything else is like struggling a little bit. Sometimes in these categories, it's kind of like everything is like a little bit low volume, but you want low volume, low competition. If you have low volume and heavy competition, that's kind of a recipe for just like butting your head against the wall, I would say.
Yep.
All right, looks like we out of time do you have a hard stop?
I don't.
All right, cool. I'm sorry, guys, we're going to miss one or two questions, but sorry, there was a cutoff. We'll answer one more and then we'll get in right to it. This other question, I'm not sure if I understand. All right, here's a good question and there's a clarification on this. So I'll read both and then we'll get into it. So if you have a good number of reviews on the parent listing and we want to run particular variation on a specific keyword, that we should either select the main keyword directly, or is there something else I should adopt? Clarify the concept. Oh, that's a different question. Okay, it wasn't clarification. Select the main keyword directly. Yeah, I mean, if you are trying to run a particular variation on a specific keyword, I would just select that keyword and then make sure you're only advertising that one product variation, unless I misunderstood something in the question.
Yeah, I think that's my understanding as well. So just make sure you've got a single ASIN campaign, right? One ASIN in that campaign so that you can actually get data on how that ASIN is performing or that variation is performing on that keyword, and then you should be good to go.
Okay. Awesome. And with that, it has been another fantastic episode. I really enjoyed having you on. I appreciate. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, where should they go?
Yeah, so if you want to connect with me directly, it's Carly McMillen on LinkedIn. Or if you want to learn more about the agency, you can go to ppcfarm.com and all kinds of information there.
Awesome. Gilbert saying thank you. I appreciate your inputs. We appreciate you showing up. To be honest, as much as we enjoy this on our end, this show would not exist without your questions. So we always appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you guys all same time, same place next week. And Carly, this has been awesome. I appreciate your insights.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
And that wraps up this episode of the Ask Junglr Amazon Advertising Podcast. I hope you found these insights and strategies helpful in your Amazon PPC journey. Remember, if you have a burning Amazon ad question that you'd like answers to, head over to junglr.com/live to join our next live Q&A session. Until next time, keep optimizing those ads and stay hungry.